call to order the Raymore Park Board meeting for October 27th, 2015. We'll need a roll call at this time.
Member Kesselman?
Present.
Member Sepola?
Present.
Member Eastwood?
Present.
Member Harris?
Present.
Member Heath?
Present.
Member Haddishell?
Present.
Member Siemers?
Present.
Chairman Manson?
Present.
Mr. Haddock is not here. Director Mustine and the rest of the staff are here.
Okay. All right, stand and make the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Personal appearances, we have none. All right, what we're going to ask for is acceptance of the minutes for the September 22nd, 2015 meeting.
I move to accept the minutes of the September 22nd, 2015 meeting.
Have a motion. Any second?
Second.
All right, second. All right. All those raise their right hand in approval of the minutes. All right, pass. Any absent, or I should say any stains? No stains. All right. All right, we'll move on to committee reports. First one up will be Budget Committee. Unfortunately, they don't have their next meeting until, I believe it's scheduled in the near future, February. Parks and Grounds Committee is not scheduled until December 8th, so we'll have to wait for that information for that meeting. Recreation meeting, it met October 13th, 2015. I either can have a report from Mr. McLean or from the chairman of the committee, Mr. Heath. All right, Mr. Heath passes it to Mr. McLean.
Thank you, sir. In the back of the packet, there's a summary written report on the notes taken at that meeting. This meeting was the first one for Chairman Heath of the members, and also Mr. Castleman, Member Castleman. They are new to the rec committee meeting, so we did introductions. We went over some old business, basically what we did in over this last fiscal year, the 14-15 fiscal year, some of the changes that were made, some of the improvements, and we went over those, mainly focusing on the new sponsorship programs and opportunities that the department has done under the previous year. New business, we also had Director Mustine and Chairman Manson were at the meeting, and we also started discussing the soccer program, the current soccer program, what the program needs to grow and develop. We had good ideas throughout all the members that were there, and we believe we've come up with a game plan to make a next step towards getting a more competitive type program. It'll be built off the rec. We're going to put that plan together, and we'll present that plan once it's all together and the committee has reviewed the final process. Other topics we discussed that came up towards the end of the meeting were just our practice space, what we're looking at, kind of the needs, looking and discussing, how much more we could look at possibly getting moving into the future for either development of more game fields or practice areas. So just things to that nature, kind of what are the needs for the division and the sports programs and the other programs that we hold, what those needs require in growing and developing. Also talked about enforcement of the smoking ordinance. We've some of the members have been out during game days and noticed that the smoking has been apparent by the parents of either our own or visiting teams. So working to talk to staff and go through our season end meeting with staff and bring that up and discuss, possible ways to eliminate that and enforce that rule. Also, Member Eastwood discussed some possibilities to the disc golf course that we have, possibilities of tournaments and sponsorship programs for it. So some of those we also discussed as Director Mustine discussed a little bit in the work session. We talked about our marketing and the marketing efforts and how those are going through changes, how they have changed, and what we're looking at continuing to change to move forward. So that is a summary of the rec committee meeting that started at 7 o'clock and ended at 9:20. If anybody has any questions, I will be glad to entertain them.
Chairman, I'd like to add something. In the future, in your packets, as we do these committee meetings on a regular basis, staff will do a small summary of these, and they will be in the back portion of your packet under miscellaneous items. So you have this written report that he reviewed. It's not in chronological order of the meeting, but it is in the miscellaneous. So just a note of information there.
Okay. Any questions for Superintendent McLean? All right. Next is Parks Superintendent. No staff report there? Pardon me. Mr. McLean again.
All right. So for the recreation division report, it's a little bit shorter than before the last couple months because we're winding down for the fall. A lot of our sports are ending. Harvest Night was this last week. This last Friday, we had about 200 participants is the ballpark that the recreation coordinator, Keith, estimated. We had, how many paid? 176 paid, but we also have the younger kids that don't pay, so there was those ones were not counted. All the reviews, Director Mustine, he was heading up the front area and kind of bouncing around and answering questions and doing that. He had some great reviews. He can follow up a little bit more on that, but a lot of pleased people, and we want to thank everybody that did join us, and we want to thank all the volunteers that helped this year. We had a good turnout of staff and volunteers that worked inside the woods and were scare factors, and it came together very well. We dodged the rain, got it in before the rain. We did not get to watch the Royals lock in the World Series, but hey, the TV was on for those guests that did arrive. But we got everything taken down in a hurry right before. Got us a little bit with rain, but we got it all taken care of. Meetings and trainings. I want to also highlight that Recreation Coordinator Keith attended the Kansas City Metro Programmers meeting this month, and she was also appointed co-chair for the 2016 year. So she'll be the co-chair of that group and organization. And then want to highlight one other thing with special events. Coordinator Keith, Director Mustine, and City Administration are working on getting all the final preparations for the Veterans Day ceremony, as well as the depot dedication. And so that is going to be on November 10th. So those final preparations are being done. So we would welcome any of you guys that could come out for that dedication and that Veterans Day ceremony and the flag dedication. We would welcome you guys to that. At this time, I'll take any other questions that you may have. Yes, ma'am.
I wanted to know if there's been any work done towards non-traditional activities for the recreation department. that we had talked about before. I wanted to know if there was any work on that.
There was some going into the fall. Unfortunately, I did not get very far with it. That is on my winter list of things to do. So we're looking at that so we could implement possibly there was 2 or 3 things that you have listed. One of them I looked at possibly implementing starting in March, and I'd be glad to talk to you about that one after the meeting or something.
And then also for for all generations, also for our older community residents as well.
Right. We're looking at different opportunities, and myself and Coordinator Keith, we actually had some brainstorming today on future growth and programs. A lot of it we're fighting with space of where to host them. We've given those things to Director Mustine as well, so he is aware of what we're looking at, what we're doing, and he's aware of what the division is looking at and what we would be looking for as we grow and build, and that's really the biggest thing. Is some of that is due to lack of facility or space. You're welcome. Any others?
All right, no other questions. We'll move on to Park Superintendent staff report.
Thank you, sir. I'll speak on Steve's behalf tonight. Just a quick update on Superintendent Rulo. He had reconstructive surgery on his foot early in October. We just received word from his doctor on Thursday that it's probably another 4 weeks before he's released for light duty. He's still non-weight bearing, so we'll be without him for well into November, around Thanksgiving, before we get him back, at least on a light duty. So just an update there. I'll fold his report into my own. Many of the things we talked about in the work session as far as projects being done. We mentioned the tennis court and the basketball courts. They are complete. We did a final walkthrough with the contractor today, and we'll begin the process of project completion. Hope to have that to you in November for final completion approval. If you haven't seen them, I would highly recommend you go out and take a look. They turned out fantastic. They really look good. One of the things that I made the decision to reverse the paint scheme on the basketball court from the tennis, and it really pops. It looks really cool, and I was very pleased with it, and the contractor was too. He hadn't had that done before, and he was really impressed with it. So we hope the project itself went well. Couldn't have gone any easier, any smoother. So that's a good omen for us, and we hope to have a good product that'll last another 7 to 8 years, which is what we hope to gain out of this. So and then we'll do it all over again if it needs it. Other projects that we have in place, we repaired the spillway off the recreation pond, the park pond. The spring rains this year, when it flooded, it kind of blew out the spillway, so we broke that down, pulled the old one, put a new one in with a flare and kind of a culvert end cap, and backfilled it in. So we'll have to continue to backfill that as it settles, but hopefully that'll solve that problem. You've seen the snow fence was up most of the summer, so that's gone. Just a lot of catch-up work is what we've been able to do over the past month that we've had the drought, as opposed to the first part of the summer when it was raining all the time. We will begin winterizing the facilities as our programs end. Typically that's November, the first week in November. We have one reservation at I believe, the Optimist shelter. One of the shelters has a reservation. I'm sorry, I can't place which one it is, but we'll winterize that facility as soon as the reservation's over, and then all of them all the irrigation systems, the water fountains, anything like that, we'll bring an air compressor in, blow those out, winterize those for the duration until next April. As far as moving forward into my report, the Veterans Day Depot dedication is Tuesday night, November 10th. You guys will receive invitations coming up, administrative staff, the communications managers finalizing those, and then we'll get those invitations out to the boards and committees. We've been working on some grants, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit. Let's see, the park van and the older green Dodge truck, both sold on the auction. I placed them at $400 for the van, and it was $1,500 for the truck, and both sold for $50 more than we listed. So we did good there, because I better not say what I was about to. We'll move on. Let's see. Finally, in the attached to my packet, I've shown you some pictures. Park staff did the Field 3 at Memorial Park. Looks fantastic. We mentioned in work session that we'll probably end up completing Field 4 next spring. And what I wanted to show you attached to my packet is the Park Notes, the monthly newsletter that we discussed that went out last week. I've attached that so you can see what that looks like. And we hope to be putting those out monthly. Is an overall encompassing park news email, and then we'll have more specific categorized emails as needed, as events come up, registration deadlines come up. So that is, we're really excited about that. And that concludes staff reports. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to entertain.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Yes, Brian.
I got a question on the park superintendent's report. He was talking about some vandalism at the East Shelter.
Yes.
Can you explain what that was and what kind of work they had to do to fix it?
How much time do we have? Because it's been going on almost on a daily basis at the East Shelter lately. Most of it is heavy doses of spit wads and debris all over the ceilings, the walls, using the restroom in places where it's just inconvenient for us to have to clean up, trying to set the toilet paper holders on fire, trying to break mirrors. I mean, typical stuff. So we've contacted the police. They have increased their drive-throughs. We're ensuring that they're being locked up at 11 o'clock like the regulations say. What we're hoping is once that we winterize those facilities, that ends up minimizing.
Which one are we calling the East Shelter?
The East Shelter is in Moon Valley.
Yeah, okay. And then it leads to my secondary question, I guess. And we've talked about this for years, I guess, but security cameras, increasing our security camera presence at some of these parks.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned that, because we just met with Member Heath and in his private life. That's what he does for a living. And so we had a meeting. Superintendent McLean, Mr. Heath, and members of the police department met to discuss, and our IT, to discuss online security cameras and getting better quality. Jim could probably talk a little bit more intelligent about it than
we've
my
got a
mumbling, but
pretty solid plan set up for that, but we're researching
Mike.
newer camera techniques, technology that we're looking at now. So
Do we need to, I mean, obviously in 2 days, we start our new fiscal year. Do we need to, I don't remember setting anything aside this year for that. Or would we partake in some of that, or would that fall to PD's budget, city budget?
I think at this point, the purchasing of that will probably be a joint venture between IT, between parks, and possibly PD.
Okay.
But we're still working through that. Right now, what we're trying to do is the logistics of what internet we have available, what the cameras can do, and finding a system that's usable and function for us, and then we'll move towards purchasing. We do
Okay.
have some additional money in the fund balance that we could appropriate towards that.
Because obviously
needed.
cameras aren't perfect, right? They don't stop it from happening, but
It'll do a lot more good than not having them.
That's
And-
right,
and
that's right.
Police department is 100% behind us doing this, so
Good.
they're excited about it, and IT department's excited. They're just trying to figure out how they can get us set up with Wi-Fi, internet capabilities to do what we need to do.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Does that sum it up? Okay.
Any other questions? All right. That ends staff reports. We'll move on. Old business, we have none of that pending. New business, first item up is game time grant proposal. It's an action item.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chairman, or
The
Mr.
Game Time Grant is something that's come up just recently. It's a grant program that they do towards the end of their fiscal year, and essentially what the program is, they don't really advertise it. It's kind of a word of mouth. They send out a few feelers to see. We were lucky enough to receive one this year. What their program is, they take special orders, and it's a quick turnaround to manufacture playground systems through the winter so that they don't lay off employees. And it's not an every year program. If their summer is successful and they have a lot of orders, they wouldn't do this program. If it's kind of light and they need some additional work, they put this program out. So I found that was pretty impressive. They're not made overseas or shipped over. They manufacture it all there in Tennessee at their plant. So this program it's a tiered program. You can get 100% matching funds if you purchase a system at $75,000, and the lower you get, the less matching it goes. What I did was we took a look at this program, knowing that in our CIP, which the council passed last night for the next 5 years, in FY17, we have scheduled budgeted $48,000 to replace playground equipment at Memorial Park. With this program in place, this grant opportunity, we called and went ahead and applied for this to see if we could basically land this grant. And what we found out is that we did. So what's happened is, and what you see before you, we're limited on the product that we can do. So that's why you don't really have an option as far as what to choose based on the pricing scheme. The lower, if we went lower, we could have more options, but at that level of price, you pretty much, this is what it is. We can choose color schemes, which I've given you those options, but we basically doubled our money. We've taken $48,000 and we're getting a $75,000 play equipment and installed. Now, in order to gain that $75,000, we had to do a few little things. We've agreed to do some work in-house for that, and we would have to pass a budget amendment and add about $10,000 extra to make this work. The grant itself has a very quick turnaround. They want the orders placed by November 13th. They ship them to us by December 31st. They're installed and grand opened by March. So it's a total winter project. In order to keep that in a realm of feasibility as far as budgeting is concerned, we did agree to do a few things, which remove the old equipment, take our Bobcat and grade out and level it out, just surface preparation, provide a dumpster so that when they're installing they can throw their trash away, all those things that they would have to do that would charge us for that. One of the things that they provided is the concrete for installation. There's no charge for the concrete, it's just included in there, so they gave us a little bit of a discount. It's kind of a tit for tat type of a scenario. So what you see before you is it's a very nice little playground system. It would go on the west shelter, the west side of Memorial Park. It would be the front entrance of what will be the new Arboretum. Many of you might know it as where the old rubber tire mulch is, that particular system. So we'll remove those. The swings we'll put somewhere else. We'll grade that out, and that's where this system would go. This particular system, within the pictures, what you see has stained glass butterflies at the top, so as the sun hits and reflects it, it has some stained glass shadows. Very pretty, and it kind of goes with the theme of the Arboretum. So what I'm asking for tonight, this is an action item. What we're looking for tonight is, number one, approval to go forward with the grant, which we'll have to go to City Council and get their approval as well, along with a budget amendment of an additional $10,000, which helps cover some of our miscellaneous expenses and any contingency that we might have gaining that. We do have additional funds in our fund balance that we could afford to do that amount of money. And if the board chooses to go through with this, then what I would need is a color combo. And I've given you 3 options as far as choosing what color you guys would like to do. That is the program in a nutshell, and I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Brian.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Mustine, I hope I'm reading this wrong, but
Probably me.
you submitted an application to replace the existing equipment at Memorial Park, securing the top play unit just under the $75,000 minimum.
Yeah. Yeah, they gave me a break.
They gave you a break. Okay, I just want to make sure I read it wrong.
Yeah, they've been very easy to work with, and I told them when we were going through this process, I'm like, you're pushing me. I'm squeezing my budget a little bit more and a little bit more. I just can't go to that level, and they gave us a discount, so we got the $75,000 without having to actually spend that much.
With that, good, okay.
But on the
it-
flip side, we have to go back and do a budget amendment to help do our portion of it. So.
Yeah. But we're looking at two budget amendments, right? And one is an amendment to bring the $48,000
Yes,
forward
sir.
a year. And the second is to add 10,000 from our fund balance.
Yes, sir.
To get us to the 58 that we need. But to bring the 48,000 forward, do we have that in the CIP fund?
Yes.
To handle that movement? We do?
Yes.
Okay. Because the fund balance is not, is the fund balance in the CIP fund side? No.
No. And I've
It's in
already
our
discussed it
operating
with the
fund
finance director.
Okay.
And she's assured me that we're okay to make this move.
And we're
And
still
we
gonna.
do have enough in the fund balance if we weren't able to advance this CIP project, we could still afford to do this out of the fund balance, but
And
we'd
we're
rather
not having to defund any other projects.
No, sir. We're
Okay.
just advancing a project up to gain advantage of this program this year.
Okay. All right, then the last question I got, and I guess it's a question here for the members up here. I personally like the spring green and bronze color because it's more earthy, right? The one thing I guess you touted the sun coming through the little butterfly thing at the top, but I think the location, it's going to kind of be buried in some trees, correct?
Not necessarily. That actual area has this little pocket of no canopy.
Okay.
And we walked it and laid that out. There
it'll
is some
work.
areas, if we encroached over to where what the sand area is, you lose that sun. So if we stay more right where the rubber mulch is,
Yep.
and we put that peak of the butterfly there, you end up hitting quite a bit of sunlight.
Right there. Right there. Okay. I just want to talk about color before I made the motion,
Well,
but
wait,
if
wait,
everybody
wait, wait,
is in
I think-
approval, then.
Well, what I think we need to do is first off, to handle the budget item, and then we can discuss color second. Can I ask questions first? Sure. I mean, that's open, but I'm just, in general, I think, because the color's gonna take a little discussion. All right, Melinda, yeah?
Okay, so what happens to the old equipment? Do we start removing it, selling it,
The
pitching it in the trash?
piece of equipment that we want to maintain and basically put somewhere else is the swing set. It's fairly new. We can remove that and without any damage. The other items, frankly, they're just grandfathered in. They're fairly old. If we can save them and put them somewhere, we will. Staff perspective and opinion is we go ahead and just put them on the city auction if they're salvageable to auction off. They're really not anything that we want to put somewhere else.
Okay. When I was looking at this, I got online and looked at it because I wanted to check the color scheme and see what bronze really was, and that's also my preference there. But the stained glass, to me, I was concerned as a teenage boy going to be able to shimmy up there and mess with the stained glass. Can it be broken? Is there, is that how high up is that?
It is called stained glass. It's not glass. It is a.
But is it breakable?
Anything's breakable, but
Is it going to be a continual problem?
no.
I mean, because I assume,
I'm assuming it's plastic.
Yes, it's a hard plastic.
Looks pretty hot, too.
Yes, and the way it looks, I mean, I can't guarantee that they're not going to vandalize it and break it, but the way that these pieces of equipment are made these days, I mean, they're making them with the idea in mind to be unbreakable. So I can find out what the warranties are in those things. I don't have that with me tonight, but typically you don't spend $75,000 on a piece of equipment that can be broke the first time somebody gets on it.
I would hope not, but I wanted to ask. Okay, and is that the best location for it, considering how we're trying to, do the arboretum there? Are we, we have an opportunity right now to move it if there's better location that we can keep it, kind of one area for, play area and one area for the, arboretum.
Actually, we did take a look at that, and it is exactly where we would want to put it. If we had a clean slate, that's where we would put it. Sandwiched right by the shelter, right near the playground, and the other playground that we have there, right near the parking lot. The other playground we have there is on the other side of the shelter. So it makes perfect sense. It doesn't encroach on the area of the Arboretum, and it's the first thing that they would see as a public as they drive into that, this big, grand, brand new, beautiful playground as you go into the Arboretum. So as we walked around it, we just kept coming back to the same spot where we were.
Okay, just to clarify then, you're talking about putting it where the swing sets are, or where the little...
Where the swing set is.
Oh, okay, so it's not in that spot that you thought.
We're not replacing the current play system that is red, yellow, green, all those colors. We're replacing the northern set with the rubber tire mulch, the swing set, the little diggers.
Yeah.
Those things are all.
Diggers.
Those are coming out. The 1980s play equipment is being replaced.
Going on auction.
Okay.
All right, any other questions?
I did
I'm
too.
sorry. I apologize. I didn't make that very clear. Does everybody understand where we're at now then?
I knew where it was, I just didn't understand that. I thought it was.
There's two sets of play equipment, one north of the shelter and one south of the shelter. We're doing the northern playground, which are all individual pieces, and most of which are several years old, except the swing set, which is what we would remove and put somewhere else.
So you'll leave the one that would be on the south side?
The south side is being left
Okay.
alone
Okay.
at this time. We may upgrade it at some point, but
All right. Jenny?
How does all this fit in with, originally, well, there was talk when we were gonna redo the surfacing and stuff in that park of it being handicap accessible and inclusive. How does this affect that inclusiveness? It's not inclusive.
it's somewhat inclusive. It is not all inclusive. The all-inclusive playground that we have scheduled would be at Hawk Ridge Park.
Okay,
So we still have that planned. It is one of the things that it will be considered for the GO bond to be at Hawk Ridge Park.
so this
So
won't affect us getting
This will
that
not,
and
this will
doing
have
that.
nothing to do with the all-inclusive playground that we have scheduled for Hawk Ridge. This is just a replacement that as these systems advance and get newer, they have some inclusiveness to them, but I can't tell you that it is 100%.
Well, that relieves me. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Michelle?
On the all-inclusive playground, are we gonna get a grant for that? Any kind of grant money towards that? Because coming from a husband that's in a wheelchair, everything inclusive, everything that makes his life easier is so expensive.
I would say at this time, we're looking at grants for everything we do. So to tell you that we'll get it, I can't guarantee that, but to tell you that we'll research and look for opportunities for grants for that, absolutely. We certainly will do that.
We'd just get a lot more, I think, for our money if we had help with that.
Yes.
Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move to advance our Memorial Park Playground project from FY17 to FY16 in the amount of $48,000.
Second that. I have motion and second. All those in favor? All right. We also have the matter of the additional 10,000 that we're requesting for the park fund. Yes, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move to make a budget amendment to add an additional $10,000 transferred from our fund balance for this Memorial Park Playground project.
Second that as well.
All right, motion has been seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All right, motion passed. Now, since that motion's passed on the equipment, now we can get to the selection of color. Yes, Brian?
Mr. Chairman, my vote is for the spring green and bronze color.
Well, if, I'm gonna put my oar in this water fast. I'm for the red, blue, red, and bronze before this gets momentum.
Me too.
All right,
Can I say something on that? Initially when I read the colors, I was like, oh, that's a no-brainer. But then when I looked at the colors, I was kind of like, putting it where the arboretum is, and it's a classy and artsy kind of thing. I kind of went with I thought, I don't know. I think I would agree with the green.
Yeah, that's a lot of green.
It is, but it's green and black.
All right, so right now I got two for the spring green and bronze, and two for the blue, red, and bronze. Jim? Blue, red, that's 3. Sheldon? All right, that's 4. 4 to 3. All right. That's 5 for the blue, 5 for the blue, red, and bronze. Is that a livable decision?
Hey, it's a vote, man, if you get voted
All
out.
right. That's all I want.
sucks. I want 2 votes. I'm voting again.
I just want to point out that red and blue also have fall. You got a lot of green there, but those are fall colors also, and this gives it a little life. Children's laughter makes red look better.
There is no blue color in fall.
Yes.
The Chiefs.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's.
For the record, the Chiefs are red.
Let's get this under control. Okay. Yes, Nate.
I would like to add that the blue and red will match the current system on the south side of the shelter. And what we intend at this point is the all-inclusive playground at Hawk Ridge would be more of the natural play system with the greens and the browns, the logs, that type of a natural theme. So I think you will all benefit at some point with your selection.
Yes, Eric.
I make a motion that the blue, red, and bronze color be accepted for the playground equipment. It asks
Yes,
for it in the
it's a
staff
motion.
recommendation.
It's a motion. Do I have a second on that?
I second the blue,
All
red,
right,
and
motion's
bronze.
been seconded. All those in favor, raise your right hand. It passes. Okay. I didn't ask for, all those opposed, I'll give you that honor, Brian. All right, thank you. 1 opposed. Okay. All right.
Mr. Chair, I'd
Okay.
like to,
Yes, sir.
at this point, what we'll do is we'll take it before the city council at the first business meeting in November. Finalize their commitment to funding the grant is part of the grant process is what this is. And then we will submit to the Game Time representative and we'll move forward with what you guys have approved here tonight. So thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Bill,
All right.
I have a question.
Yo, I'm sorry, Sheldon.
Yeah, as Nate, in the discussions about the equipment, Memorial Park has always been a target next to East Shelter, a target vandalism site. Could you give us some feedback about how easy it will be to replace the, let's call it, stained glass? That's going to be a target for, I know a couple of kids in the neighborhood that will probably put a tent in the park waiting for those.
Slingshots.
At this time with this particular presentation, I don't have individual prices, but I do know that this system is set up to be replaced at individual items. It's
Okay.
not one connected unit. So you break one piece, you break the whole thing. This is parted out. It's built by design that way so that if something malfunctions, something is damaged, broken, we can replace parts that need to be replaced at a much lower cost.
In addition to cost, I was wondering about the ease of replacement. Is that something that, some good turnaround time? If
Well, the fact that we have to rent a lift to install the butterfly feature is going to guarantee that it's going to be extremely hard for them to reach it to begin with. But that's probably the hardest part to replace.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. We'll move on to item B. This is going to be the fiscal year 16 budget update, council additions.
Thank you, sir. What this is, the city council last night went through their second reading and approved the budget for the upcoming year and the CIP. And I know that it's been a few months since this board has had a chance to look at that, both portions of that, your budget and your CIP, even though we did develop that. What I wanted to do tonight is just give you a recap, just a quick synopsis of what's going on. Mr. Fearborn has joined us to make sure that I don't screw any of this up and say it wrong. So I'm going to let him take the lead on most of it, but there are portions throughout this budget process that the council has the liberty to make changes, add additions, anything of that nature. And so what we wanted to do is come to you tonight, a couple days before this is implemented, and give you an update on what the council's done, what we have to look forward to this year, and with Mr. Fearborn being here, if you have any questions, you can ask. And so this is really just a presentation item for your information. And at this point, I'll just entertain any questions, and if I can't handle it, I'm going to ask Mr. Fearborn to step up to the plate.
All right.
He is behind me, correct?
Everyone, everyone up to speed? Okay. No questions?
I can do a quick synopsis, a little bit of
That would
some of the
probably-
stuff.
That'd be appreciated.
There's Bill 3108 is what was went through council last night as second reading. So that is, in fact, what is going forward as the upcoming budget. There's a couple things in there that relate to us. Our park fund expenditures are $1,189,000. There's some transfers from the general fund to the park. Really, it is what it reads to be, and it can be confusing at times, and I can't say that I can give you a clear synopsis of it myself. But if you have any questions about that, we can. What I'm more interested in doing is we've given you another sheet. The finance director and I have prepared for you towards the end, FY16 budget transfers, and that's really kind of the meat and potatoes of what affects the park board itself. And so within that, I wanted to just highlight a few things that we have coming up this year that are pretty exciting. And I've been with the city for a long time, outside of my little 2.5-year hiatus, but I am extremely excited and happy to be a part of this process. I've never seen this amount of money, projects, things that we've got to look forward to, and so I'm really pleased to be a part of this. Just to highlight a couple things, as has been in recent years, recommended by the city manager, is a $100,000 transfer to help to the park fund for operation assistance. A couple years ago it was $50,000, then it was increased to $100,000. That has remained the same with no changes as of last year. One of the additions through this past month, Councilmember Holman has recommended $25,000 be transferred towards the betterment of competitive sports to be used at our discretion towards improving field quality, uniforms, training, whatever we feel or deem necessary to advance our competitive sports. And that doesn't just go towards soccer, but it can be towards competitive basketball, competitive baseball, soccer, volleyball, whatever the case may be. It's just one of those things that he felt we could use to increase our programs and make them better. One of the transfers to the Park Sales Tax Fund, 47, is designated specifically for shade structures at the Recreation Baseball Park. It's one of the things council felt like they would like to see out there, so they designated that money. So with that being specific towards shade structures, staff will move forward with an RFP on scope of work and getting some designs before the park board as far as what type of designs, facility, you know, anything that we can do within that budget amount towards shade structure. So we hope to be bringing you some options for that over the course of the winter to get those moving in a summer project. Another general fund transfer, and this is not bond money, or this is general fund transfer money out of city council. This is basically additional money that they can use and dictate where it goes. What they want to do is hire a consultant to take a look at the park house replacement, get somebody in there, look at what it's being used for, the potential that it can be used for, the location, and really get an idea of a design of what we can do, what we can utilize, what we can afford. So this money is designated specifically for consulting and design of a park house replacement for us. Part of that dovetails into geo bond perspective and future projects. That is general fund transfer to capital improvement sales tax fund, pre-construction of the MAC gym. It's this form, Erica. Okay.
So it's line item at 260,000 for design.
Design, and what we'd like to do throughout the process is not only a design, but once we've determined and gone through that process, selected something, that particular fund also helps us to develop the pre-construction documents so that we can be ready to hit the ground running if this particular project is approved to go before the geo bond, and then the voters pass a geo bond to make this happen. We're ready to go immediately. That was the intent of this project.
Okay.
Any questions? All right. There will be some later.
I can move on down as we go through possible geo bond considerations. That rec center, what we're calling a rec center, which is basically the replacement of that park house facility. That is one of the considerations that the council will be looking at next Monday night as far as being on the list for the geo bond considerations. And then you see just a list of things that have parks and recreation potential to be on the geo bond. These are a list of items that are potential that they will be looking at and discussing next Monday night as what they might want to put on the ballot for this geo bond. And that includes the recreation park trail rehab. What that is, it's a significant amount of money, but it's to remove the current trail and replace it with a 10-foot wide concrete and do it right, something that will last for the next 20 years. Within that scope of that project, if the rec center is included, there'll be some changes of that trail system. So we'll have to remap it and do some adjustments as far as where the layout is. Other things that we've put on there is the all-inclusive playground, additional parking and accessibility of Hawk Ridge Park. So kind of jump starting those phases within Hawk Ridge. And another project that they're wanting to do from a public works standpoint is extend Johnston Drive from Darrowby all the way down to Dean. How that affects Parks and Rec is that it gives us connectability to a designated park that wasn't on our radar for a few more years. If this is in place, we now have access to the Timber Trails property, which is, I believe, around 18 acres of parkland. And so that allows the dedication of that parkland to be advanced, and now we have the ability to access it and develop it and move it forward. So that has some potential future considerations for us should that project be funded as well. And then just as a follow-up at the bottom is additional parks and council, just things that they're working on, things that they're doing in conjunction with us for the park board, things of that nature. So I've just listed those out there of other things that they've been working on. One is the depot, which we discussed about the dedication on November 10th to dedicate that building, the park itself, and then the City Hall Annex, which is the property located behind City Hall that City Council just purchased. Right now, the plans for that City Hall Annex is that that would be where our Parks and Rec administrative offices would move to, and we would, for all intents and purposes, operate that facility, used for rentals in conjunction with other city staff for trainings and functions and stuff like that. But our offices would move from the Public Works to the City Hall Annex here on Municipal Circle. So I know that's a lot, but if you have any questions, I'll be happy to try to tackle some.
All right, Michelle?
Nate, I see the reference to T.B. Hanna Station Park. Is that been designated, or is that a future designation, or when will that come under the park department?
Well, as of
Umbrella.
now, the park itself has not been designated.
Okay.
That is for future designation, and I believe we'll discuss some of that later
So
on.
that's just
this
a
evening.
general reference at this point?
Yes,
We're not
sir.
responsible for it yet?
The intent is for that particular piece of property to at some point become a park within our jurisdiction.
Okay. And it'll affect our budget from that point on?
At that point, we will assume the maintenance of that property, but at the same time, we will also benefit from any revenue, programming, shelter rentals, things of that nature as well. It'll just fold into our park system.
All right, Michelle?
Once the annex is built, what will your current offices be used for, that building?
The Public Works Building? Actually, we're temporary residents there. We were moved into that facility knowing that it would only be a short period of time. I think from a city perspective, it was a lot longer than we had hoped, but Public Works is just as excited about us moving to Annex as we are. But the relationship's been great. We love working with those guys and being in that building, but essentially what'll happen is those guys will get the office space and the storage that they need by us vacating.
All right, Brian?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. On the ball field shade structure, I'm not sure if you mentioned or I missed it. Who brought that up? Who recommended that?
Mr. Holman, Councilmember
Holman
Holman
did.
brought that up.
Can you remind me when we have the dog park in our capital? What year that's for?
I'm,
Yes.
I want to say it's in FY 18,
18.
but
And we're getting
can
ready
I
to
follow
start.
up and get back with you on that?
Yeah,
I don't know that I can get
it's
to it.
just not this year, right?
It is not this year, no, sir.
And we're getting ready to start FY 16,
Yes,
so it'd be 2 years out.
yes. At this point, that particular project, the dog park, is scheduled unless an alternative location comes up, which we've been working with Silver Lake, but that seems to have stalled a little bit. It's still scheduled and within the master plan at Hawk Ridge Park.
Can I ask what Mr. Holman's reason was for the ball field shade structures?
I cannot speculate on his reasoning for shade structures.
And I
other
don't know
than
if you heard what he
said that he
mentioned.
wanted them, and
He just wanted them.
yes,
Okay.
sir. He asked for some information. I provided that, and then
Yeah.
Oh, now he's up. Now
I
he's
was wondering
moving.
how long he was going to make me stall.
Yeah. Chair recognizes Mr. Dearborn.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good evening, all. You missed a very exciting in the park home run. The
That didn't help.
the historical context for the shade structures, when the backstop, 4 years ago now, when the backstop program was originally proposed and placed into the CIP, the backstop program actually had a component of it that included the shade structures. And it's either been 4 or maybe as long as 5 years now when that original upgrade to the backstops was placed into the CIP. Included the shade structures. They couldn't be afforded when we finally got around to final pricing for that 2 years ago when we were placing that project actually within the park sales tax budget. By then, the shade structures had become so cost prohibitive that they were dropped out. Interestingly enough, if you look at last year's description for those before we actually started construction, the bottom line of that still included the possibility of shade structures. Again, couldn't be afforded, they were dropped out. Councilmember Holman suggested that because they were in the original project, seemed to be an item that could perhaps contribute to additional revenues for the park department, that he proposed to the council that they be added back in essence, to the project as a whole. Just a little historical context.
Any other questions? All right. Thank you, Director Mustine, for that, and Mr. Fairborn for clarification. All right. Next item is public comments. Well, we don't have public tonight, unfortunately. Board member comments. Any comments from the board? Michelle, Melinda, pardon me.
I got a couple actually. I went to the art commission, had a little, I don't know, meeting, and just was kind of getting public input. I went to the daytime one and was very interesting. I don't know if anybody else went to the evening one, but they really are interested in pairing up with us, and I just was really encouraged by it. I thought it was some really great ideas. We talked about Hawk Ridge Park, the amphitheater that is set, I think, in stage 3. Is that right, Nathan? Yeah, and so, I'm like, hey, if we're really starting to push this, art commission into Raymore, and this is, it's starting to become more artsy, I think we need to be pushing that amphitheater and getting some, start moving along with that. So we kind of talked a little bit about that, but I actually last night was at the council meeting and spoke there and told them, hey, I would love for you guys to consider this, because they're doing their work session Monday night to discuss GeoBond money. So FYI, that's kind of what I think, and I think that we need to definitely be aware of what the art commission is doing. I think they're doing some really cool stuff, and I think Raymore has an exciting future if they really get to do what they want to do. So that's all I have.
Anyone else? Michelle.
I just want to thank the Parks and Rec staff and our city staff, because you all don't have an 8-to-5 job, and you all give so much more of your own personal time and life that I've recognized being on the park board. That I just want to thank you all. You all don't get thanked enough for all that you do. So Raymore has an exciting future, a lot because of what you all do. So thank you.
Okay. All right. Any other comments? All right, at this time, I'm going to move that we adjourn to executive session. I'm going to require a roll call for this.
I did have one thing to say. Just one quick thing, and this goes back to Mr. Castleman's question on the Helix Tower. So I looked up the part number, and ogs.ny.gov has a list of game time price lists, and that part number was commercial price is $12,600, and the net price is $9,585. Now that's all 4 things going up, so just a rough price. If we had to replace that whole piece of equipment, it's obviously less than that. So it doesn't list out what the exact thing is, but here you go. There's a rough price.
So they don't sell by the pain.
Yeah. Not that I could tell, but. Okay, thanks, sir. Sorry. I second.
All right.
I thought he did. I thought he,
All right.
I thought he moved.
Just one second. Mr. Fairborn.
Just a reminder, sir, for the record, this is to go into executive session for for real estate acquisition matters. That needs to be entered into the record as authorized by 610-0212.
Thank you. That's always good to know. All right, I had a motion to move into executive session and second it for real estate acquisition discussion of real estate acquisitions. I need a roll call vote on this. Proper pronunciation, please.
Sorry, my computer froze. Member Castleman?
Yes.
Member Sepola?
Yes.
Member Eastwood?
Yes.
Member Harris?
Yes.
Member Heath?
Yes.
Member Haddishell?
Yes.
Member Siemers?
Yes.
Chairman Manson?
Yes.